The last culture that we'll talk about in our Ancient Near East module is the Persian Empire. The heart of ancient Persia is in what is now southwest Iran, in the region called the Fars. And in the second half of the 6th century BCE, the Persians created an enormous, far-reaching empire that stretched from the Indus Valley the Indus Valley to northern Greece, and from Central Asia to Egypt. And I'm showing you a map in which the red outline shows the far boundaries of the Persian Empire and its height. And you can see it was absolutely enormous, and at its height, it rivaled the boundaries of the Roman Empire in its heyday. The Persian Empire was an imperial state founded by Cyrus the Great and flourished from about 550 to 330 BCE. And as I said, the empire's territory was vast, but its populace was even more impressive. It's thought that in its heyday, the Persian Empire ruled 44% of the human population of the planet Earth. So it wasn't just territory they had, but a vast populace. So how do you control such a vast empire with so many different people speaking so many different languages and having different religions? And the answer was, it was a tolerant empire. The Persians were quite tolerant and ruled a multi-ethnic empire. And Persia was the first empire known to have acknowledged different faiths, so it practiced religious tolerance. It acknowledged different languages, and most importantly, political organizations. The tolerance for cultures under the Persian control were carried over into administration. So in the lands that they conquered, the Persians continued to use the indigenous languages and the administrative structures. For example, the Persians accepted hieroglyphic script written on papyrus in Egypt and traditional Babylonian record keeping written in cuneiform in Mesopotamia. So they were cool with whatever you were doing before, just as long as you made tributes to the Persian kings. The Persians must have been really proud of this new approach to control an empire. And because we can see this in the representation of many different peoples, of at least 28 different nations, shown in the reliefs in Persepolis, which was their administrative and ceremonial capital. Persepolis was a city founded by Darius the Great in the 6th century BCE. And it famously was conquered by Alexander the Great, who burned it to the ground. Even though he destroyed it, Alexander no doubt was impressed by the Persian system of absorbing and retaining both local languages and traditions, because he really looked to the system and imitated it himself in the vast lands that he won over in battle. So, Persepolis, let's take a look. Here is a view of the ruins of Persepolis, looking west with the Apadana in the background. And this is an Apadana. It is an immense audience hall that was said to be able to hold 10,000 people. It had a roof, a timber roof, that would have been held up by a forest of 36 huge towering marble columns. Now, this is called a hypostyle plan, and we're going to see this again in different structures that are meant to hold huge congregations of people, whether they be administrative or religious. It is a great way of holding up a massive roof. However, it does impede views. Wherever you look, your view is being blocked by a huge column. But in the case of Persia, they symbolically accepted this as kind of representing the columns representing a huge diversity of people that are held within the empire, literally holding up the roof of the empire. The earliest archaeological remains of this city date to about 515 BCE. Persepolis is a Greek word that simply means the city of the Persians, and was known to the Persians instead as Parsa. And it was a very important city of the ancient world, and it was known for its monumental art and architecture. As you can see, it exists on a high plateau, and the approach was a monumental gateway called the Gate of All Lands. And we see representations of all of the different lands under the Persian Empire, at least 28. This was a reference to the harmony of all of the people in Persia and tolerance. And I'm showing you here kind of a plan that shows the different parts of Persepolis. And you'll notice that the largest places, the section in red is the Apadana that I just mentioned, and the purple, the Treasury Hall. So symbolically, what this says to me is that they reserved the most space for the two most precious resources. Obviously wealth, which would have been kept in the treasury, but the other wealth of the Persian Empire is a place to address the people, a place where people could enter and feel welcomed by the Persian government. You could also walk through to this space between two colossal man-headed winged bulls that flanked an entrance. What does this sound like? Yes, they are Assyrian Lamassu. So they are adopting the visual imagery of one of the peoples held within the empire. The Apadana had mud brick walls because, like many areas in this region, it lacked stone. So mud bricks were used quite a bit. And we can see in the distance these towering columns. This is what it might have looked like at the time that it was first excavated by the Germans in the 1930s. You can see the staircase, which is the bent access approach to the Apadana Hall. So there is a processional staircase that would invite you up, and you would see all of these beautiful reliefs that showed people that are in the process of also processing up the steps to land you in the Apadana, where you could gather with other subjects of this empire. And you'll notice that the top of the columns, and we'll be learning all of the different pieces of columns when we get to Greek architecture, but the top of the columns is called a capital. Each one of the capitals is different. Some of them have the head, forelegs, and different parts of different animals. There are griffins, which are eagle-lion hybrids. There are many different mythological creatures. All of the capitals were different. And the architects here want to suggest that Persians had captured all of these exotic monsters and animals under the same roof to hold up the roof. And the symbolism, of course, is that different cultures are supporting the empire and the king. We have, and if you look at just the basic form and structure of these capitals, they're made up of a kind of U bracket. And this is where a wooden beam would be held. Where did they get the resources to build this city? The timber would have had to, massive cedar beams would have been imported from Lebanon. Stone had to be imported from different places in the empire. Glazed tiles would have come from all over the empire. All of the variety of materials are another show of wealth and power and the vast resources and the diverse resources of Persia.